Hi everyone, hope you all are keeping well. So today is the second session, that is part 2 of AWS serverless implementation, introduction to Lambda. So over to Amit.
Thank you, Dilli. First of all, we will start with a recap for session 1 because there may be people who haven't been able to join the session 1, and after that we will go to the session 2. In session 1, we have discussed about the Lambda. First, we have discussed about the life without serverless, that means the issues we are facing with traditional architectures and how Lambda serverless architecture resolve it, and the AWS serverless offerings. These are set of the offerings from the full AWS offerings. And then we have discussed about the AWS Lambda, which is one of the most important topics in AWS serverless because it's the compute of serverless. Therefore, and again, we have discussed about the abstraction level, how it changes from servers to Lambda, and anatomy of Lambda function. Here we have discussed that Lambda is running on Firecracker micro VMs and it supports multiple language runtimes. Then we have discussed about the triggers. That means these are the main aspects of the Lambda. We have trigger, which activates the function, and the actual function and the resources which used to complete the function. And we have discussed about some of the triggers here. And then we have discussed about how Lambda function executes and what's the call start means in Lambda function, and warm execution. What are the warm executions? Then we have done a demo of creating a simple Lambda function and discussed about the benefits and drawbacks of Lambda. Today we are going to discuss about how to integrate this with clients. That means, yes, there are a compute power, business logic in Lambda. Now we have to think about how to interact this with clients, right? Therefore, today we are going to discuss in detail about API gateway. First of all, here actually I'm going to discuss about trigger. Therefore, I have put trigger in red. Today, the total session will go on Lambda triggers, and these are some of the triggers and the main invocation types. That means Lambda can be triggered in two ways. First one is synchronous invocation. The second one is asynchronous synchronize. In synchronous Lambda invocation, what Lambda does is we invoke Lambda function as a request response method. That means our request, that means Lambda runtime will wait until Lambda function runs and it gets the result and send it back to the original caller. That's how synchronized Lambda invocation will happen. That means caller will wait till he gets the response from Lambda function. These are some of the examples of synchronized Lambda invocations. That means when we access, that means most of the time when we access Lambda functions using these services, you will wait for a response from Lambda function. There's another way to access this, that's asynchronous Lambda invocation. In asynchronous Lambda invocation, you are not waiting for response. You will just ask Lambda to start, and then language runtime will return a call and say that we have started the Lambda function. That's all. And in background, it will work. We are not waiting for response. These are some of the Lambda asynchronous invocations. That means these are the services which use Lambda as an asynchronous invocation. As an example, if you want to write something into log, you don't have to wait. That means when you're writing something into log, it will add some time to Lambda, right? That means if you are trying to do it in your business logic itself, it will add some time to Lambda to process it. Therefore, what we are doing is we will put it into that means we will create another request to SQS, and through SQS we will call that Lambda and say that write this into log. You don't have to worry about it because SQS and Lambda will manage that and it will happen. Likewise, we are using asynchronous Lambda invocations a lot when you are using serverless architecture. The second one is, now let's imagine you got a request to develop a mobile app and a web app which are using Lambda functions as the backend. Now you have a web app and mobile app which are using Lambda as the backend, right? Now you have to think about the following aspects. The first one is authentication, whether authentication is there or not. The second one is authorization, whether this request is authorized to use this Lambda. Traffic management. If you get a lot of traffic to Lambda, there should be a mechanism to manage the traffic and monitoring. We should be able to monitor Lambda invocations. Then, as a solution for that, AWS provides API gateway for that, right? When you use API gateway, these applications can access it through API gateway. What API gateway does is create APIs and give accessibility to these Lambdas, right? This will be the front face for these Lambdas. Now let's talk about Amazon API Gateway. Amazon API Gateway is an AWS service for creating, publishing, maintaining, monitoring, and securing REST, HTTP, and WebSocket APIs at any scale. Here it talks about everything. It talks about creating, publishing, maintaining, monitoring, and securing at scale. That means it has all the aspects which we wanted to have to access these Lambdas. And here you can see it can create REST APIs, HTTP APIs, and WebSocket. Now in this session we will talk about REST APIs. HTTP, if you want, we can see it's similar to REST, but there are some elements missing in HTTP. It's just proxying the HTTP request to Lambda and client. Now let's go to the demo. This is my AWS Management Console. First, I will go to API Gateway, and there's one API Gateway API I have created. When you don't have any APIs, you will get this. It say that HTTP API, WebSocket API, REST API, and this is a special one, REST API for VPC. Now I will create a REST API. When I click build, it will ask again whether you want to create a REST API or WebSocket. I will select REST and new API. API name, I will put REST NOC API, because now I am not going to directly connect this API gateway to Lambda. First, I'll show you how API gateway works, and I'll create a mock API to show you that how it works within API gateway. For endpoints, you can select multiple options: regional, edge optimized, and cloud. VPCs, private APIs. Here you can see, and I will select regional, and I will create a API. Now it has created the API, but we will have to add a resource. Let's say simple mock, right? And for now, I will not click on any of these things, and I will create the resource, and I will create the method. Since this is a REST API, it will give following options, and I will select get. Now you can see this API can integrate with Lambda functions, HTTP endpoints. We can create a mock API or AWS service or VPC link, right? For now, we will create a mock. Save. Now you can see there are multiple components which related to API gateway. Here this is client, therefore it's the person who is calling API gateway, and there are 5 components which connected to API gateway. And first one is method request. Here actually this is the public interface of the API. This defines that means this gives the definition of the API to client. And if you click on this, you can see the details of method request. It says this API definition includes authorization and definition of the HTTP verbs that allow and input data. It says that what are the things allowed in input data, like headers, query string, and parameters. And we have integration request. Here, what it does is it maps the method request to integration. That means method request can come. That means method request can have headers or any other parameter. We will want to map it to endpoint. That means the integration point. Therefore, this is the point we are doing it, and we have the endpoint. This can be any integration like Lambda, HTTP, mock, AWS service, or VPC endpoint. And now, when this happens, that after this happened, we will get the response, because this is a request response architecture. As we discussed, this is a synchronized access. Therefore, this will give a response, and in integration response, you can map it. That means map errors. That means let's think we have got an error from integration point, right? Then we can map errors and status codes to API gateway method response. If you go there, you can see that details. That means you can read it when you're using it. Here, actually, what it does is it maps the HTTP response to method response. In method response, this is again the public definition of response. Now, if I run test, right, it will give 200 without any data, because we haven't done anything. That means we haven't configured anything there. It gives 200 with no data. Let's think we want to be adding something like this to here. Here you can see the mapping template, and I want to send JSON object as the response. Create something like this. Right, and I'll save it. Then let's click on test and see. Oh, sorry. Right, it's working. Now you are getting a JSON object which says message I'm alive. Now that means using this you can edit this mock response. That means you can edit the response and you can send it to here. Now we will see a more detailed way that how these things are working. First, I will change this integration request, and I will map. I will add something like this. Here, what it says is, if I am getting a parameter named my parameter with my value, the status code should be 200. If not, if it doesn't have this, then status code is 500, right? Now I will save it. Now if you try to do it, let's think we are trying to test it, you will get same result, because here we didn't put values for HTTP 500 error. That means that's how it works. Therefore, we will have to introduce how to manage 500 HTTP status code in here. Therefore, first we will go and add, that means we will have to add the status code here, but I'll try to add 500 code from here and show you something. I'll add this and I'll try to find the method response status. It's not there, right? Why this is happening is, again, it doesn't support 500 status code here. That's why you can't put integration response. That's why you can't map it to 500 status. You have to first go there and put 500 HTTP status. Then you can come back there and add it, and then you will have 500. Because now, because of this, you can see this is just a mapping which maps the endpoint result to method response. If you don't have a HTTP status in method response, you will not be able to add that pattern to here. That's that you want to know, because it will be needed when you are trying to use it. Now you can add this status code is 500 and messages. This is an error message, right? Then when you save it, now it's done. That means now integration request says if input doesn't have this parameter with this value, it will give 500. And method response have these two HTTPS status, and integration response have the integration mapping to those HTTP statuses. Now we will test it. First of all, I will put value first and test. Then it says status code is 200 and I'm alive. Let's remove it and see. So yeah. Then it will give 500. If you put something else even, it will give 500 again. That means here you can see how it works inside the API gateway. Now you have client request, but after from here onwards it starts the API gateway, and first you get the method request, and you can map it based on your endpoint, and integration response can map it to support the method response and provide it to client. That's how this works. Now we will create a Lambda function. Actually, I have created a Lambda function for this. I'll show you that first. This is the Lambda function I have created for this. And this is the Lambda function. It has some things like return hello world. I'll create another resource. Or another API then, because this says REST mock API. Again, I'll create a regional API. I'll create a resource. And I'll create a method. Right? Now I'll connect this to a Lambda function. Here you can see I'll not change anything here, but it's good to know that this API gateway has a default timeout for a method. It says it's 29 milliseconds, right? What will happen is if user call this API gate, that is API through API gateway, it will wait for 29 seconds to get the response from the Lambda. If it's not there, it will give an error. Let's think, as you all know, Lambda can run up to 15 minutes, right? If you put like 2 minutes, that means if it runs for 2 minutes, you will not be able to give response through API gateway. That you will have to be careful, because normally people will think this is work. That means even though execution will happen for 2 minutes without thinking about this timeout, it's better to see that also. Think about that, means we have to be careful about this. Now I have selected the Lambda function, and I will now we have the first function, Lambda first function here, and again we have request method, integration request. These things are there. Now when I try to access this, it says hello world, right? Now this is a text response. It's not a JSON object, right? Therefore, if you want to change it, that means, let's think your Lambda is providing a text. It's not a JSON response. It is provided by Lambda. You want to change it in middle. Then you will intercept this. Since you have this 200 status code here, you can use this and change the mapping template to support it. I will put now it will get the input body and put it as the message. I'll save it. And now let's test it. Now you can see now that interceptor has accessed it and changed the method response, which came from Lambda function. Now I want to show you something else. I'll create another resource and I'll show you that. Lambda proxy. Now we can say configure this as a proxy resource, right? Right. Now I'll connect the same Lambda function first and show you it will not work. You can see why after. Now it's connected, and here you can see the integration response blurred. It's blurred, and when you go to method execution, integration request, you don't have that mapping functionality in this also. This will have what are the endpoints which we are going to use. That's all. Other than that, you will not have any other template mapping or anything in this. This is happening because we have created this REST API as a Lambda proxy. Now this is actually accessible. Now it's a proxy only. It can't manipulate the request or response in middle. It's just a proxy. Now let's try to do a test and see whether this will work. message internal server error. This didn't work, right? Here you can see the response came out from the Lambda function, right? Here it says the endpoint response body before transformations. Hello world, right? Execution failed due to configuration error, malformed Lambda proxy response. Therefore, what we will do is we will create another Lambda function. I think you can remember how to create a Lambda function. I will create it also from scratch. And here what I will do is I will change this a bit, create it like this. Now here we have to provide this response in JSON format, right? And we'll save it. And we will go to exact name. Right. Now let's test this. Now it's working and it gave a response body also. Since this support only, that means this is only a proxy, we can't manipulate the integration response or integration request. Now you can see how it happens in a proxy API, Lambda proxy. And let's go back to presentation. And now you know how to connect API gateway to Lambda, right? Now let's come to the real world. That means in real world, you should be able to use these APIs, right? Let's think you have two domains, abc.com and xyz.com. You want to access the API gateway using that means Lambda function through the API gateway. And when you try to do it, it will not allow if you haven't configured the pose. I'll show you what it is and how it happens. Normally, pose means actually cross origin resource sharing. When you are trying to access something from outside from your original domain, you will have to allow the cross origin resource sharing. If you haven't allow it, it will not allow user to access it. Right. First of all, what browser will do is browser will go to the API gateway and see whether pose is allowed. If it's not the same domain, it will check whether pose is allowed. If it says no, then it gives an error. I'll show you how this gives errors. This is the tool we are using to test pose. That means I just Google it and I found this. And first of all, we will have to deploy this to access it through it from internet. I will deploy this. Here you can see we can deploy the API. I will create a new stage. Let's say div. When you deploy a API in API gateway, you will get something like this. Right? If you access it from outside, if you do it like this, then you will get an error. It says missing authorization token. Now, what you have to do is you will have to go to this resource. It says message. When you try to access this, it says hello world. Now you can see now it can be accessed through browsers, but when we try to access it through another domain, let's see how it will work. Right? Now it says now it's not giving any any response. Therefore, if we see this, you can see access to XML HTTP request from this origin has been blocked by course policy. No access control allow origin. Header is present on the request resources. That means this is not allowed. That is, other domain will not be able to access our API gateway API. Therefore, we will have to allow it. To do that, we will enable course. Here in actions, you have enable course. Here you can see this options, right? Options is the one which used by browser to see whether course is allowed or not. And method is get. And here you can see access control allow origin is all. Now it can be accessed from any domain. When you change this, you will have to redeploy it because now deployment is not having this course enabled. Therefore, you will have to redeploy it and access it again. Now we are accessing the same API. Now you can see the response came with status 200 and it has content length and everything, and you don't get any errors. You remove this. Oh, sorry. Send request. We are not getting the course error. That's how you have to access it. That means when you are creating a website or anything which is connected to API gateway and access the Lambda through it, you will have to enable the course. And let's go back to presentation. I'll explain this briefly. And in Lambda, we have event and context. Event is object which contains the data of request object. That means when you get a request, event has all the request data within it. And context object has the data about the runtime information while Lambda is running. As an example, you can say how much time is remaining before the Lambda function times out, what CloudWatch logs. That means here you can see how much time remaining before the Lambda function times out. That means there's a Lambda function timeout property we are putting, how much time is remaining. And we can say what are the CloudWatch logs, log groups and log streams we are using for this Lambda function. While it's running, we can get all this data. I will create a simple Lambda and show you because it will important for you. I will go to the demo and then it will end. If you go to this Lambda, when you try to create a configure test event, right, you can see there are multiple test events, right? When you click on something like this, you will get this event. When you click on something like API gateway, you will get this, right? That means there are predefined structures, these events, right? And for context, I'll show you context works. I'll change this code into something else and show you how it works. Right. Now I'll save it. Now here you can see context get remaining time in milliseconds. These are the information which we can access about the runtime environment and the other resources we are using. And when you test it, you can see here remaining time is this, and function name, function version, the latest, AWS request ID, memory limit of the function, and log group, log streams, and all of these things you can see here. Because of the time limit, I think we will discuss it up to here today, and we will discuss about how to connect Lambda into DynamoDB and save data, get data. We will discuss about DynamoDB integration in next session. I think we will need to have another session to show you. Now you are seeing this through the admin console, right? You should be able to develop this. To do that, I'll show you how to use serverless framework to do everything by coding and deploy it in serverless. I'll show it in fourth session. Thank you.
Thanks, Rami. So hope you all understood and found it interesting. So the other session, that is part 3, will be on the 24th of July. Highly appreciate your participation. Thank you everyone for taking part. Have a nice day.
Thank you.